My name is Jeremias. I'm part of the architecture area at Whiteprom. This is a space called Online Tech Talks, where we share knowledge between us and our partners. So feel free to ask if you are interested in giving one online tech talk. Today, I'm proposing a different schema from the usual schema we have. Instead of presenting a presentation and talking about a topic, I will be going through some of the updates from the reInvent. I don't know if you are all aware of what the reInvent is. It's an event that AWS gives once a year, normally between November and December. It's in Las Vegas, and they present there all the things that they have been cooking for us, for the developers, through the year. So it's the event where they present the huge new tools and updates for the services. And so I tried to go through, I went through them and I tried to select the ones that I felt that were interesting. Maybe there are some others that are interesting too, but I'm not a user of those services, or I'm not aware of those technologies. And my idea will be to have a conversation today, like to talk with you about some of them. If you want to participate, that would be great. If not, it's okay. I can go through them and we can see them together. So let's start then. I started with the most important, at least for me. I don't know if it is because of the World Cup, but I'm really happy that they are presenting and announcing a new local zone in Buenos Aires. And I wasn't aware what local zone meant, but I did my small investigation, and it's interesting. It's not a region, but it allows you to have low latency solutions on some services. So it's like, it's not as having a region as, for example, Brazil has. Brazil has a full region on São Paulo, but a local zone replicates some of the services. And what you can do is you configure your VPC, and you say this VPC is extended to Argentina's local zone. And what does that all the containers and machines and some other resources, I think that is storage, database, and compute, at least. Maybe we have some other services, I don't know, are deployed here in Argentina. So that reduces the latency for those applications that need really low latency. So interesting. This has been, at least for me, the most important announcement. Then for the rest of the presentation, I split it in three. The first part will be like general announcements that I think are interesting. Then some curiosities, because I think that there are services that I will never use and most people would never use, but they are interesting. And lastly, I selected the updates that are interesting for software development that I think we will use the most. So I think that's the most important part, but let's go to the general news, let's say. So I don't know if you have used OpenSearch. OpenSearch is an engine to do search and queries on data. So they have presented a serverless OpenSearch. I never used it, but I know it's really powerful. And the nice thing about this is that you don't have to manage clusters and anything. You just put your data. I think they have a name for that. They have collections. You just push collections to your OpenSearch instance. This is the OpenSearch instance. And they will run, and you don't have to take care of how much information or how much performance you need. Then let's go about some news on QuickSight. I don't know if you all know QuickSight. QuickSight is a BI solution fully featured from Amazon. It gives you the ability to consume data from S3, SQL, or any service that AWS has, and it allows you to create dashboards for your end customers. So they have added some features. I work with QuickSight. It's a really nice feature, and it's all web. And they have added paginated reports, are like PDF exports of dashboards. This feature seems pretty simple, but I tried to do this once, and it was like all cut, and now they have arranged the software to give this to top-level management, the reports that they require if they are not using the application. Then another news from Amazon QuickSight. Until now, if you wanted to do a service on a scale, you had to go manually and duplicate dashboards and reselect lots of things. Now they have released the API, so you can do BI at the scale for your customers. So if you want to create 100 dashboards at the same second, you can do it now. You couldn't do it before, and that was a gap they needed to cover. Then one more new about QuickSight. There is a technology called Spice that they use. Whenever you put information in QuickSight, they save it in Spice. Spice is a really fast storage where you do the queries, and now they have added more space for you to put more data in there. Then I saw this news about Amazon Inspector. I didn't knew the service. Amazon Inspector is a service that gives you the ability to check your code for vulnerabilities. They mentioned here the Log4j vulnerability that has been all over the news. If you didn't listen about that, it was a vulnerability in a library called Log4j. It's a library that it's almost standard in any Java application, and they are trying to push you to use the Amazon Inspector by talking about this vulnerability. But the important news is they have added the ability to check lambdas too. Until now, you just could check your containers, your images in ECR, and now you are able to check also the code inside the lambdas, and they will give you the critical findings and some coverage. So interesting. Another interesting news, you can protect sensitive data on Amazon CloudWatch logs. This is something they have been missing. So before this, everything you log to CloudWatch was visible by the end user. Now you can define regex that match some stuff, so you can hide from your logs like personal information or maybe passwords. If for some reason in development you are logging passwords, this will with this tool you could avoid to log them in a production environment, for example. More news about CloudWatch. They have released the Internet Monitor preview. I didn't test it, but it's supposed to give you the ability to analyze the connection related metrics and see how your application is behaving. So the example they give is sometimes your customer says that your application is running slow, but for you in your computer is running okay. So with this tool, you will be able to analyze how it's behaving all over the world and why your application could be having problems. And I think that lastly for CloudWatch, another interesting announcement, they allow cross-account observability. This may not be something we do every day, but until now, if you wanted to get metrics or logs from your application, you could only query one account at the same time. So with this new ability, you can set up with which accounts you want to share the logs, and you can query all that at the same time. I think it's same for log metrics and traces. It works for every feature on CloudWatch. And this may not sound too important, but for example, if you are working with a CloudFront, that is the caching that allows you to spread your application all over the world. If you put lambdas in your CloudFront distribution, those lambdas log in each region that they are running. So for example, if you wanted to query them all at the same time, now with this feature you can. If not, you had to go into each region and you had to know where your customers were and in which region they were hitting. Now with this feature, you don't need that anymore. Now some news about Glue. They updated AWS Glue to 4.0. I don't know if you had used Glue, but I have used it, and each time they have a new release, they allow you to use new libraries. Their engine is faster, and what's really nice about Glue is that you can update it. You don't have to migrate anything. Most of the times it works out of the box. So news for Glue. And sorry for that. This is a news that I know is important, but I'm not really a PostgreSQL user. But now they have added the ability to define extensions for Postgre in Aurora and RDS. They had this feature disabled for the RDS, and now they have added a way to define extensions to Postgres. I know extensions are a core part of Postgres, and with this feature, they allow you to code or import new extensions to RDS. And the two last news, one is about the NoSQL Workbench. NoSQL Workbench is the desktop tool they give you to learn and design DynamoDB tables. And they have added DynamoDB local, so you now can design them and deploy them locally, so you can test it locally and understand how your DynamoDB will be behaving in the cloud. And the last news is a small news, but it's important. RDS proxy is a service that allows you to hit a database from any service and don't have to struggle with connections. They manage the pool of connections for you. So for example, it's important if you use RDS from a Lambda that scales almost to infinite to use RDS proxy, because this will handle for you all the connection pool. So you don't have one connection per Lambda. And they have added the Postgre 14 to the RDS proxy. So it's important if you are using RDS with SQL and Lambdas or any other resource that scales too much. Okay, so this has been the announcement part. Now I will work with curiosities. They have introduced a service for genomic analysis. They call it Amazon Omics. I don't remember why, because it's like genomics and other nomics, and that's why they call it omics. So now that you have a service, if you are a scientist working with ADN, a service to analyze and do some analytics and ML over ADN. So I think I will be using this someday, but it's interesting to know that they have this. And finally, for curiosities, they have released a service called AWS Supply Chain. It's a service oriented to supply chains, and they are promising that you can do ML and have insights about how the data is flowing in your supply chain, I may think. So again, just curiosity. I don't think we will use this, at least on the short term, but interesting to know that this exists. Finally, this is, I think, the most interesting part of the news. I have selected the announcement that are related to app development and things that at least I know how to use. And let's start with the service called Application Composer. It's a way to design visually your application, your serverless application. and that will generate automatically some templates. Some is the serverless application model, is a set of tools over CloudFormation, a set of definitions, let's say template definitions, that allows you to define serverless resources in a simpler manner than CloudFormation. So I have made the test with App Composer. So this is the example application they give you. Some interesting thing, I will try to load it in another window just to show it how it starts. When you start, it gives you the ability, this is interesting, to connect it to a local file system. So you can select a folder on your computer, and every change you do here, it will be reflected locally. So it's interesting because you don't have to download anything. You just give the browser access, and this will create files in your computer. I was able to create one from scratch, but I wasn't able to open one already created. So just to show you how this works, this is an example application that has an API with some requests. Each request calls one different Lambda, and they connected each Lambda with a DynamoDB database. What this will generate is an API with each Lambda, and it will give permissions to each Lambda to access the DynamoDB database. So if you go to the template view, you will see this is some template. You don't have to know everything what's in here, but the interesting thing is it reduced the learning curve of some templates. So really interesting tool. They didn't have a tool like this yet, and there were some companies doing similar things. But now you can just say, okay, I want to add an S3 bucket. You just put it here. You go to the details. You have some settings there, and then let's say I want to access this bucket. No, why I cannot move it? It has some bugs I'm seeing. So let's say this Lambda needs to access this bucket. So I can connect it, and that will give the Lambda permissions to access the bucket. Okay. I have arranged it, and now it's a little more clear. Although it's really interesting, it has some limitations. For example, I wanted to define the DynamoDB table. You can define it, you can define the partition, the sort key, but you don't have the ability to create indexes, for example. So it's still in development, but I think it's nice to have a visual tool to design serverless applications. And let me go to Visual Code. When I connected it to my local computer and I replicated that example here, they created this file. This is the template that I generated. This is the some config to deploy it. I had some README here with example, and they created one folder for each Lambda and some example code to handle the DynamoDB table. I don't know if this works for every example, but at least it was interesting to have this with just one click. So I hope that they add more things to this. Supposedly I can import a template, so I will try later to import some of the templates I have already in production to see how they display. Okay, this is what's called then Application Composer. Then they presented something called Catalyst. I didn't have the opportunity to try it. Supposedly they give you a whole environment that set up all the project resources to any development. So they take care of CI/CD, the repository, and all the things you need to create an application. They have this beautiful page where you can try it out. If you want to try it out, it will be interesting to present it here because I think that this tooling can be interesting to ramp up projects more fastly. And so they promise you to create with some clicks and describing your application, how you want it to work. So they configure all the environments, all the CI/CD for you. So it sounds interesting. It sounds similar to Amplify, but even more simple. So it will be nice to do some testing here. Here we have the free tire. So maybe we can make a demo of this. I don't know, maybe when they do things that seems too magical, maybe you lose control of the details. I don't know. We have to give it a try. Then they really released this service. And in fact, it's a feature of a service. It's called Event Bridge Pipes. I don't know if you know Event Bridge. Event Bridge is a way to connect event-oriented applications and services. It gives you the ability to publish messages and consume them from the other end. And in fact, they allow you to filter messages and decide which messages go where. So they have released Event Bridge Pipes. It's the same service, but with a real nice UI. So I have made some testing here. It's an option that it lives inside Event Bridge. It's called Pipes. You enter here and you see this screen. And let's create the pipe to see how it works. So as I said, it's a really nice UI for something you could do before. Let's say example pipe. So here you can say, okay, I want to define the source of my pipe. Let's choose any of these. Let's say I will be producing in an SQS queue events. And then I have, let's close this part. I have to define an event pattern that is optional because I can consume every event, but I can say, okay, let's consume just the events that this value is more than this or this date, or this has this value. Then they have added this that is really interesting. They have added enrichment. So this gives you the ability to enrich data with a Lambda, with an step function, API gateway, or API destination. And you can receive the data from the source, enrich it, and give an answer. And then that enriched event will be delivered to the target. And finally, you can select the target. They are the same targets that Event Bridge had. So you can say, okay, I want this event to go into one of these destinations. So really interesting. It allows you to, in a simplified way, define how you want your messages to go through Event Bridge. And I think that this enrichment feature is new. This is something that Event Bridge didn't have. If you want to do enrichment, you had to have a target of a Lambda, for example, and then from the Lambda, redirect the message again to the final service. Interesting. Then they have presented this step functions distributed map. I don't know if you have used step functions. I'm not an expert, but I have tried it. They have several ways to define your flow and how your services interact during a step function. And now they have updated the map. The map is a function that allows you to map an input into some other process you want to do. Like, for example, I have lots of images in S3, and I want to map those images to some process. So until now, map iterations run in parallel, but with a limitation on concurrency of 40. Now they have extended up to 10,000 execution at a time. And until now, they only accepted JSON array as an input. Now they accept also S3 objects, JSON arrays, CSV files, or Amazon S3 inventory. Also, they have an update in the payload because now you can access the S3 file directly, and they have added more execution history. So now if you want to do parallel work with lots and lots of executions, you have less limitations, and you are able to select S3 as a source. So really nice update for step functions. And lastly, they have released something called Lambda Snapstart. This is something that is oriented just for the Java runtime, because until now, every runtime run, the cold start was almost instant, but for Java that has the VM and lots of resources that they need to boot a Lambda, they have developed something called Lambda Snapstart. What they are doing is they take a picture of the memory and the CPU data when the Java Lambda is already booted. So for the next execution of the Lambda, they just fill the memory and the CPU with that data, and they start from the Java environment already started. It's just important for Java, as it says here, and they say they have really reduced the amount of start time for those Lambdas that are implemented in Java. Okay, this is all. At least it's all the thing that I thought that may be interesting for us. For me, the most important ones are this way to design serverless applications, and I think that these are services could be interesting. Co-Catalyst. Then the pipes are also interesting, I think, because they give us more tools to work with events. So okay, I hope this was interesting for you too. If you would like to comment something or help me having a conversation here, that would be great. It's not mandatory, but I hope this has been useful for you too. There might be more news, but I wasn't able to read all of them. I just selected the ones that I thought that were interesting for us.
Hi, Karen. I think it's really interesting. I like the most the two tools was this pipe tool is really good, right? And the other tool that you mentioned to allow to graphically create all the serverless functions, and also the good part of that is that you have a diagram that is the documentation behind it. So
that's right.
And if it's synchronized everything, is really a good tool to visually design your functions, and then you have the code behind it. I have a question because I saw something. Is there in Amazon a service that allows you to see like pingdom, that when your API is up or down, and the SLA time or the SLA percentage of that? Because I saw some part of it that you share, but not sure if there is a service behind it.
Yes, there is something. I don't know if this answers you. CloudWatch has a service called Health Check. I don't know if it gives you the SLA information.
Or the app.
I think it's this one. Okay, not sure. I know they have one. I know they have one feature of CloudWatch that allows you to have a health check, and if that fails, they will give you an alert. But this is the new thing. We should try this. This is the new one, Internet Monitor. They supposedly log end-to-end your request to your application, and you can analyze that later. Maybe this gives you an answer. Not sure.
Yeah, I was, okay. Yeah, because I saw it, but I didn't know where to look for. Okay, yeah, I think that is my
Yes,
my answer.
this is the new service, and as always, new services have gaps, and they can have bugs like this tool. But maybe we can give it a try. Sounds interesting.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Thank you, yo. Okay. If anyone wants to comment something else, let's end then with the screen that says we have a new local zone in Buenos Aires. That's the most important for us. I don't know if we are going to use it, but sounds great.
Okay. Thank you, Jeremias.
Thank you. It's got
Thank you for
really good.
coming.
Have a nice weekend, guys.
Yeah,
too.
good luck, Argentina.
Yeah, let's go Argentina.
Yes.
Let's go.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.